So I would like to welcome Marci Grossman to the stage as our speaker. Marci, woo! All right. So here's the power of LinkedIn. You have no idea who knows who. And one of our speakers from way back when said, hey, my sister just wrote a book. You should talk to her. And so I did. And that's how Marci and I were introduced. And she is just full of information, nothing to do with what the previous speaker spoke about. And she's going to talk about finance. She is a CPA and she is awesome. She has her own website. She's written a book. She's like, the whole package. And she's down to earth. And she's going to share with us today ways that we can budget, whether you have a job, whether you're unemployed, you're in transition, you're looking for another job, taking the unemployment, taking the maybe gig work or freelance work until you get something permanent, all of that information, taking those numbers, which is kind of scary, and putting it to work for us so that we can be productive. So take it away, Marci, it's all yours.
Hi, everybody. As she says, my name is Marci Grossman. I wrote a book. I'm a CPA, and I love to talk about money. And so here I am to talk about money. I'm going to be running a PowerPoint and sharing some other screens. So forgive me when I juggle screens, and we'll just keep getting back to the right place because that'll be part of the fun of it. So let me get this up. And get that. And let me move this over here so I can actually see it. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about taking ownership of your expenses, but it's really all of your money. We're going to talk about income and expenses and money as a whole. So the first thing is the world is changing. We knew this before COVID. It's a global economy, and we've been transitioning to a global economy, which is whether jobs are shipped overseas or parts are built better in other places, and we ship them from here or they ship them to here. And this is something that's been transitioning for years, for decades, and really was going to continue to be doing that. And then COVID sped up a lot of the changes because we had work from home becoming a new standard, at least temporarily in some jobs, though in other jobs more permanently. We had technology upgrades becoming faster and mainstream. I don't know how many of you were on Zoom meetings before COVID, and now you're probably on at least a few a month, no matter what your job is, no matter what your situation is. It's just a better way to reach people, family, friends, and of course, business meetings. And workplace expectations have changed, really, no matter what your job is, whether you still go into an office or your position is the kind that will be in an office. Maybe some of your coworkers are at home. Maybe you don't see your boss at the workplace as often. All of these things have changed. They were going to anyway, but this made them change faster. And no matter what you did before, whether you were hands-on as a mechanic or customer service, or you were someone who worked in an office by yourself, you were impacted some way. These changes, they were going to happen anyway. They just happened in a much shorter time frame because of COVID. And the fact is, we're not going to go back to what was. So we need to adjust our expectations for what jobs we might do, for what opportunities we might have, for what skills we're going to need. Everything has to change because the world changed on us. I remember back when I started in accounting, if you wanted something to get from here to there quickly, you either paid a lot to the post office or a delivery service, or you got in the car, you took it yourself. Then we had fax machines, which revolutionized the world. And then we got email and websites and all of these other things. And it's insane the changes happen faster and faster, and COVID just made them happen so much faster that we just have to deal with that and figure out the best ways to move forward from it. That said, I'm really here to talk about financial literacy, and that is the understanding of the concepts of money, the ability to use a variety of financial skills, and the basic knowledge of money matters, specifically the information you need to make good decisions. And that's understanding how your choices about money impact the other areas of your life. So first off, you have to own your money. And that's to own your money, you have to understand your money. You have to really be able to understand what your money is doing for you and how you can make it work best for you to achieve what your goals are. To understand money, you have to understand where it comes from and where it goes. And the best way to do that is to create a schedule to see your actual money flow. And that's really what a budget is. And of course, the more detailed the budget, the more information it gives you, and the more information you have, the more accurate it is. And that's what helps you make the best decisions with it. So what really is a budget? Because people hear the word budget and it gives a negative connotation. If I say budget, you think, oh, great, you're going to make me cut out my Starbucks, or you're going to tell me what I can't buy. And a budget isn't that. A budget is an estimate or a guide of your income and expenses. It's what you have or what you're expecting to have. And it's a tool, ultimately, to map out your financial future. And you can use a budget to map out the near future. I don't really like to make budgets for less than a year, even though I'm planning out what I'm going to spend on a weekly or a monthly basis. To make a tool, to make a budget as a shorter period, you're missing things that don't happen on a regular basis. So we're gonna talk about how to create a budget, how to create that tool to manage your money and your money decisions.
Marci, let me ask you,
Sure.
with the budget, it seems like planning things out for a year, do you have an unexpected ballpark of how much money you can spend, or do you have to plan everything out? Because just thinking about that is kind of exhausting.
Well, and that's why I'm going to show you some spreadsheets you can use that will help guide you to answer the questions. There's always unexpected. You can make an estimate for what you think I should plan for unexpected. If you're building a house, they always say, okay, here's the price, and you should have a 10% buffer, or you should have whatever. And you've got to figure, you know your life, you know your lifestyle. I can't make a budget for someone else without significant input from them. So I become the hands that make the budget, but they're making their own. So what I'm giving you is the tool so you can make your budget. And as we work through it, hopefully that'll answer that question a little better. But if it doesn't, please bring it up again and ask any questions you have so that we can address them as we're running through it.
If you have a question, everyone that is on this call, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and I am happy to relay that to Marci, because we would like to answer questions as we're going through those slides and address the inquisitions as we're doing that, as opposed to waiting till the end.
So on my website, I have links to budget worksheets that you can download, and I'll show you that in a moment. You can also type budget worksheet into your browser search bar, and then there are printable versions of many different styles of budget worksheets. This is what you'd see. Obviously even more than that, and you can find the spreadsheet model that will be most comfortable for you. And that's the most important thing. It's a tool. If it's not something comfortable, if it's not something you're going to use, it's a useless tool. And so you've got to find the one that you're comfortable with. So we're going to start with how to make a budget on the income side of things. and you analyze and list how you get paid. So you want to be comprehensive, but not overly generous. Whether you're in a job or you're a gig worker, or you're planning out what you think for a job is going to start, what the money coming home is going to be. Don't give yourself too big of a bonus. Don't assume everyone's going to give you large tips, because then you're going to find out, oh, I planned my expenses around an income that was unfairly larger than it needs to be. So try and be comprehensive, but honest. I say on income, you should always kind of err on the side of cautious, and on expenses, err on the side of generous. And if you can get the two of them to match, then you're in a pretty good place. Assuming you are paid a job, you're paid for a job that withholds taxes. So this would be W-2 income. You want to make sure you list the net amount. This is the amount of the money that's on the check that actually gets deposited into your account after taxes and everything are taken out, because that's the money you actually receive to spend. And then list how often you're paid. Once a week, every other week, twice a month, once a month, depending on the type of job, will impact how often you're paid. And we're going to use that on the budget sheet to figure out your annual income so that you can see what you're looking at. And that's what you use to annualize your income. Things to consider for budget income. Is your income going to be similar for last year? And if it's not, you've got to adjust for changes. You want to look at current activity, not prior year data. And that may be higher or lower depending, are you at a job now and last year you were on unemployment, or do you have a part-time job and last year you had no job, or you had, whatever it is, you want to make sure you're using the current information. And have you done a tax projection to make sure you won't have a surprise expense at tax time? Because if the check you're getting works for your budget, but you now have a surprise of $1,000 tax bill when you prepare your tax return, then we haven't budgeted as accurately as we could have. There are tools. I have a link on my website for you to go to the IRS. We'll talk about that later. Let's see. There we go. There's my IRS tax estimator. So I have it on my website, which means you only have to memorize this and go to the links. But here also is the list of the IRS tax withholding estimator. And if you want to type all that in to go there, you're certainly welcome to.
Marci, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering, some people have like W-2s where they have 0 deductions and 2 deductions and family 4 or whatever. So those numbers that they're putting in are going to affect how much withholding the government or IRS is receiving?
Correct. And the thing is those numbers are an estimate for the government to decide which form to use when they're computing what your withholding is. And you may be a family of 2, but the correct withholding for you is as a family of 4 because of other income or other types of expenses, and vice versa. And that's why you want to use the withholding estimator that lets you say, okay, I'm going to make this money, and this is what my taxes are, and these are my other things. You answer all their questions, and it kind of gives you a rough idea of what your taxes would look like at year end, so that you can make the best decisions for, oh, maybe I need to go back to HR and say, I need to figure out how to withhold an extra $1,000 throughout the year, because that's a lot better than having to pay $1,000 in March or April.
So can you do this on your own, or do you need advice from a financial consultant, or how does that work?
Theoretically, you should be able to do this yourself, and that's what I have that estimator for. That takes you through the questions so that you can see what it is you need. This is a rough estimator because your numbers may not be accurate, because we're all doing the best we can. Anytime we do that, we don't know when you're going to get a bonus. We don't know if you're going to take an extra couple of sick days you don't get paid for, or if you'll get a raise or whatever. So anytime you have a significant change, you may want to look at running the estimator again with your newest information. Make sure you include the year to date, as well as answering the questions to figure out what the rest of the year is going to look like.
So are you saying, I mean, I hate to get caught up on this one slide, but with all of that said, I know like open enrollment for health insurance is once a year. And you can only make changes or additions, you know, barring a family emergency once a year. So with this, can you kind of make a change in the middle and not have an open enrollment, or how does that work?
So your withholding for taxes, hold on. Excuse me. Your withholding for taxes can be adjusted as often as you need it through your HR department. Some software lets you do it online yourself for your payroll software.
Okay, very interesting.
If you are self-employed, whether you're a gig worker or whatever, you can use this to determine what you should be paying in quarterly estimates so that you aren't surprised at the end of the year, or what you should put away in savings to have available for March when that taxes come due, whichever works better for you, depending on how much. If you are underpaid significantly at the end of the year compared to last year's taxes, there could be penalties. So you do want to try and pay appropriately. But this is a good tool to kind of see what your tax situation would look like at the end of the year. Unfortunately, this is only a federal tool, so I can't necessarily help you with your, that would be New Jersey for you taxes. I'm not familiar with all the New Jersey taxes, but you know, you can start by just pulling out last year's form, throw your numbers in there and run the calculation. I don't believe New Jersey is a crazy tax return for individuals, but I could be wrong. I think they're fairly straightforward.
Thank you.
Sure. You ready for me to go on, or you have anything else?
Yes. No, I'll stop interrupting.
Oh, no, please continue
Great
to interrupt.
information, and I don't think a lot of us on the call knew about making a change, you know, month to month or quarter to quarter. So that's definitely a highlight.
So this is what your income would look like on an income spreadsheet. And I just threw a couple of easy jobs. Here's their job. They make $500 a week, and that's their net that they take home. And then monthly, they dog walk for someone. And so the dog walking gets converted times 12, because that's a monthly payment, 12 months. And the weekly gets multiplied by 52. If they had biweekly, it would be multiplied by 26, semi-monthly 24. And that pretty much sums up how income is earned. Now's where it's going to get fun, because I'm going to close this sheet, and I want to. So this is my website, and here's where I have links and worksheets. Here's the IRS tax estimator. Here is the budget worksheet. I also have it available as a Google Doc for whichever way people feel more comfortable with it, or else, as I said, use the search engine and you can pull up writable worksheets. If you go on my Google Sheets, here's what it looks like. I don't know, are people familiar with working with worksheets, or should I spend a few moments showing you how to work through this?
Everyone is coming with a different background and experience with Google or not Google or Excel or that kind of thing. So can't say one way is better than the other.
Okay, so here's what the worksheet looks like in Excel. Let me bring that over here first, which is pretty much the same as it looks on the Google Doc, and they work pretty much the same. So here I might say job 2. And this one pays bi-weekly, and it pays $100 because you only work a few hours a week. And then the sheet automatically updates to add those amounts in and do it and bring your income. So that's why I like using these. And this would also be W-2, because that way I know the taxes are already taken out of it. So I'm going to pull that back out. The way I have these sheets, they do continually self-update. So if you want to always make sure you look at things, and then when you add them, go in and make sure that that things added the way they should have. So I could add more lines if you had 20 jobs this year. But then you want to make sure if a job starts or ends mid-year, that you adjust for it so that it doesn't include 52 weeks if you only work there 10 weeks. So
I
be
love
aware.
that point because I don't think a lot of us are thinking about that. They're like, okay, we make X amount of money per year, but if you start in April, then it won't be that much because of,
Right. So you need to adjust for those. Here's where I got the formulas. I can't sit here and give you an Excel lecture
That's
or a
okay.
budget, Google Worksheet lecture because we would be here for 3 days. But it is something that is easily findable on the internet, or you could just override and put in a new column here, and then it would continue to total across as long as it's between, because I used a formula here that goes from here to here, so it would pick up if you added other columns in. Okay, let me go back and oops, let's see, where are we? See if it goes back to my current slide. Nope, it doesn't. Okay, let me. I was doing so well.
It's all good. It's all good. Lots of IT issues that we've had or I've had, so it's normal.
So that's what the income looks like, and then we're going to talk about the expense. Let's see. At the top of a paper or on a spreadsheet, you're going to write down weekly, biweekly, monthly, annually, and any other columns that may be needed. Quarterly should probably be listed in there. You might have some that pay biannually. Sometimes insurances do that, your car insurance, your homeowners or rentals insurance, depending on how you pay those. And you want to make sure that you include any expenses and that you include them in the right time frame. And in the first column, you're going to write down the category for each expense row represents. And here you see weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and total. And again, those are on the Excel and the Google. I can go across to that Google sheet. Would anyone like to see me go across to the Google sheet and add some items, or are you good with what I have here?
No, I think you're good. I really enjoyed reading this because it's stuff that we would not necessarily think about, such as hosting Thanksgiving. I said that to you, like, what? Wow, I would not have thought about that being an expense, and yet it is some kind of an expense, or birthday presents, or all that stuff going under expenses, and yet it's, we think about the car payment and the phone payment and electric bill. We don't think about all those other little things.
So I recommend for anyone who wants to do this, first off, you get to decide how many categories you have and how in depth they go, because you know your situation. I threw in Thanksgiving because, oops, see, there I go. I threw in Thanksgiving because I wanted it to be something that makes you go, oh yeah, right. I host 4th of July, or it's a big holiday for me and I'll spend $200 on fireworks. All those things have to get picked up. The best way to do this is you go through your checkbook, you go through your credit card statements, and you figure out what you need to know. Before you say that a number is big or not, remember when you go to Meijer's, you might buy groceries, and you might buy a cell phone, and you might buy clothing, or you might buy sporting equipment, and you get to decide, oh, maybe I should have a category that I just call Meijer's because I don't want to have to break them all out. Or you might go through every bill and say, you know what, I need to know what I'm really spending on X, Y, or Z. And this is something you can take control of. You can go back. I recommend people, when they make a budget like this, to go back every month or so and say, what did I spend this month that I didn't remember to include, or what ended up costing me less because I've been able to start adjusting my expenses. And it's a really useful tool as a starting point for managing everything. I say a budget is probably one of your most important tools in any kind of financial endeavor, because it tells you where your money's going, and you get to decide, and you get to change and adjust and tweak things.
So how do you, for example, something that changes month to month, every 6 months, or like vet bills, we don't know how much we're gonna spend per se on an item like a vet bill. So how do we put that as an expense on our budget?
Okay, so now you are gonna make me switch to a sheet.
Sorry.
No, please don't be. I want to make sure I make this work. And so when you go to my budget worksheet, I've got tabs at the bottom, income and expense,
Okay.
and I can put the vet bill anywhere. In fact, at the beginning of this, when I had to run out, it was because my cat wanted to get into a locked room. So I can add vet, and I can say, I think annually I spend $100 for shots and what have you.
Okay.
So I'll add that in. Let's see. Obviously, I need to reset some parameters on this sheet so that it adds them correctly. Or I could say, let's see, I've got quarterly vision. Yeah, because there's 4 of us. My internet bill went up and now it's $75 a month. Or, but like the other one, if something changes mid-year, I get a roommate and now my rent is less, or mid-year, my roommate leaves and now my rent is left, you want to adjust for it. Here, it may be that you then want to put the numbers in the annual and just say, I've got 6 months.
Okay.
6 months with alone.
So for example, you put $100 a year annual for vet. So if we only spend $50 on the vet this year, woohoo! Yeah, that's not happening for me. I don't know about you guys. But does that mean there's a found $50 in December, or
So I would
like,
adjust
where
it
does that
here.
money go?
After you spend that vet money and you're like, you know what? I only had to spend 50. I didn't have to spend 100. I would adjust it here because then it will correct this expenses here.
Okay. Okay.
And when we get to this last sheet, then you'll see what that means, what that does.
So then we can use that as a guide for doing the budget for the following year.
Unless it was an unusual year. This year, your cat didn't have shots or your dog didn't have
Thank
whatever.
goodness, right?
And usually, they get a shot every other year as opposed to every year. And you started making the budget based on this is what we have every year. You looked at last year and, oh, last year we got the shot. This year we didn't have to get the shot. So you want to kind of be aware of that.
We have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
What's the measure for overspending? We tend to be very much entitled to our hard-earned money. The whole point of making money is to be able to spend it on our needs and desires. It's contradictory to make money and then later have a headache thinking of how to spend it or not spend it. What are your thoughts?
I am not sure I understood the question.
The person doesn't want a headache of making decisions based on a budget of what we can spend or we can't spend. What is your thought on overspending? Like, how much is overspending?
If you spend more than you earn, you've overspent.
Okay.
I mean, it's really as simple as that. In terms of a headache of telling someone what to spend or not spend, ultimately, it's their choice. If you want to overspend or you have to overspend, we'll talk about that a little later on. There are various reasons you might have to overspend. Life is life. And that's why I suggest people come back and revisit this every month. Theoretically, that revisit doesn't take very long. You'll say, yep, I stayed right in line with where I was. I'm not going to adjust it because I spent $70 in groceries per week this month, because I know next week I might, next month I might spend 80. But for something that significantly changes, I just moved to a new car insurance company and now it's $400 quarterly as opposed to $500 quarterly, then you're going to want to adjust it for that. This is a tool.
Your goal is basically whatever, if you are making $30,000 a year, to not spend more than $30,000 per year on whatever you choose to spend it on.
Right. I don't really believe in the school of thought you should spend 50 on this and 30 on that and 20% on that. I think people have to determine what's the right thing for them. Some people would rather live in a really small place and have their money for traveling, or their car is what's important to them, not their house. Or maybe their house is important and they ride a bike to work or take public transportation. That's their choice. I'm trying to give them a tool so they can say, whatever my situation is, the important things are where I put my money. And hopefully at the end of the day, I haven't spent more than I received.
So with that said, as your expense for groceries, cell phone, car insurance, blah, 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 is there a line item for a savings so that you have something to draw from in case of an emergency, so to speak? Is that on there? Sorry.
I don't have it as a savings line because I
Okay.
like, if someone has a W-2
Mhm.
income, a lot of times you can send it to multiple bank accounts. So
Okay.
you could say, I want 90% to go to my checking account and 10% to go to my savings. And that's not including the fact that you already have money being sent to your 401k. If you prefer to make your own savings, then you can do that too, and certainly add a savings line in here. Ultimately, those come down to personal choices. People have to make the choice that they feel works for them.
Okay, so that kind of addresses a lot of questions that are in the chat box. I think that everyone seems to be concerned that they're not going to have enough money at the end for all those expenses and then be able to put money away for those rainy day savings. And, you know, God forbid the vet is not $50, but it's $1,000 or whatever. We're dealing with high gas prices. So we used to pay $3 a gallon, now we're paying $5 a gallon. And I'm sure that nobody has that expense on their spreadsheet or budget sheet. So we're gonna have to pull that money from somewhere.
Well, and sometimes what things like that mean is that you then talk to people at work and you look at carpooling and you do measures that you wouldn't have done. As I said, I like savings coming out before you get your money to spend.
Okay.
It's much easier once you have that money to spend. It's hard to put it away into savings when you've got these other things. But if your savings account is off on the side and you don't get that cash, then it builds much faster. And even if all you can put away initially is $5 in savings and $5 in the workplace 401k, that's something, and you start from there. And if you find you can manage your expenses, then you start raising those gradually. But if you never see that money, it's a whole lot easier to manage around it. A lot of people, I have a savings line, you know what, I won't save this month, I'll get to it next month because right now I want to spend a little more on a present, or I want to, whatever it is, and getting that money away before you can spend it sometimes makes a huge difference for people.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Should I go back, or are we?
No, go ahead.
More questions?
Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. I love when I'm good. Let's see.
So far, you haven't finished yet.
I have not finished yet. Now I have to figure out. Oh, well, I'm going to have to go back. Yeah. I'll go back really, really fast. Don't watch, you might get seasick. So then the third page of that is the budget total. And it would have the annual income and the annual expense and the gain and loss. And if you saw when I showed you before, the tabs at the bottom of the two spreadsheets I use, and these will update automatically. And this is the yellow total from the income sheet and the green total from the expense sheet that I used. And you're giving them a PDF of this whole slideshow so they'd be able to trace.
I am. Yes.
And what I have on my sheets is in the Excel sheet, it goes in red if you've overspent. In the Google Doc, the way it works right now, I haven't been able to fix the programming, is it's highlighted in red if you're negative, and then it's not highlighted in red if you're positive. And you'd look at this and say, okay, I spent, you know, I'm budgeted to spend right now 1670 more. And you might say, okay, maybe I can pick up some work, maybe I can do whatever. So what does your budget mean and how to use it? If your income is in excess of the expense, you have a gain. And so the questions you ask yourself is, am I already contributing to savings? And do you already have savings and investments? Maybe you have them, but you're not contributing. And then keep and start saving depending on where you're doing, and say, okay, well, if I'm going to be 1670 ahead, I'm going to put half of that toward investment and half of that toward savings. What I didn't have on the expense sheet, and I'm going to add that now that we're talking, is any debt. So if you have things that you're paying off, those need to be on your sheet as well. Any existing debt for credit cards, for school loans, for car loans, those need to be included in your regular expenses. So if your income is in excess, you have a gain. If they're equal, does that include the fact that you're contributing towards savings? The questions are the same if they're equal. Do you have savings and investments? And keep and start saving, because ultimately you want to be putting money away. Hopefully you'll have extra money to put away.
So let me ask you this, Marci. We have a comment in the chat box, and I want to ask you about that as well. Money makes us happy. Spending makes us happy. The reverse is true. How do we manage our attachment with money? That is a great question. Are you getting to it? I don't know.
I am going to be getting to it in a minute. So, but that is a great question. We do have an attachment. Buying things makes us feel good.
Yes.
Ultimately, you have to choose which are the things that make you feel good, and which are the things that make you feel bad. As I said before, if your car is what's important, then maybe you need to spend less money on fine dining. If fine dining is your gig, then maybe you have to stop the cheap coffee dates, or you have to, look at the things that are most meaningful and spend your money on those that you have, but don't spend it on the things that you're spending out of habit.
I think we talked about this earlier before everybody was on. A budget is just a yucky word. I think it has a very negative connotation, kind of like diet. You don't want to ever go on a diet. You don't want to feel like you're depriving yourself of whatever you feel like having. You just want to eat. And we know as we get older, especially, we can't always do that. We have to have some kind of restraints. And sometimes with a budget, we're doing the same thing. So maybe we want to change that word so it doesn't have that negative connotation. I don't know what the new word is. Please feel free to put it in the chat. Give us some suggestions of what that word would be instead of a budget.
Well, if you come up with a good one, I would love to hear it. I do think a budget is an amazing tool. Yeah. And I think if we get people to understand that it is a tool, not a rule, it's an opportunity. And I think that'll help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me go back. If your expense is in excess of your income, look at your income, and are you in the right work opportunity? There's a lot of reasons that you might not be. I'm assuming if you're here right now, you're not quite in the right work opportunity. And unfortunately, I don't have jobs to offer you, but I can say, look at what you are and who you are, and keep looking for the right thing. And in the meantime, try and manage your expenses so it doesn't leave you in any bigger of a hole than it needs to. It may be that you have a part-time job and you need full-time work. Maybe that you're not necessarily using your best skills. You might be continually building new skills, and you need to look for the opportunities that come from those skills. Can you or should you pick up some more work? Can you work overtime? Can you pick up some gig work to tide you over? Is this a temporary situation? Which is certainly possible sometimes due to things that are going on in your life beyond your control. Well, children are definitely beyond your control, but that's another situation. And it could be that these are things that are temporary and that will be changed in the future. And right now you are a little bit under underwater in your spending versus your income. That's temporary, and you have to do the best you can to get to that next point, whether it's finding the right sitter or finishing your degree or your additional training, whatever it might be. You might be going through some health issues or someone in your family that you need to be a caregiver for, that it's a temporary situation. And sometimes we have to accept the fact that right now we're going to be under for a while, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're just going to do the best we can to get there while this situation continues to resolve. And always look at expenses, because we have way more control over our expenses than our income. So are you trying to keep up with friends in a different money situation? They like to go out to eat fancy and you'd rather grab a quick burger or just a coffee with them. It's okay to say things are tight right now. I'd love to see you, but I'm not going to see you for this fancy thing. Or I really don't get joy going to movie theaters. Happy to meet you for dinner afterwards, or let's get together for a card game. It's okay to say these things. Again, are your expenses temporary because you're paying for school? But are you spending money for the wrong reasons? And obviously keeping up with the Joneses, or just spending money out of habit rather than getting the joy from spending it, because you should get joy when you spend money. I can't say I get joy when I take my cat to the vet, but I certainly like hearing that she's healthy and doing well.
I think that you bring up a very good point, Marci, that what is important to me as a person and my expenses might not be important to you, Marci, for how you view the world and how you view your own expenses, and would not be the same for Joe and Sue and Sam. Everyone is going to be different and have different priorities, and there's budget lists are going to be a little bit different as well. What is really important and what is secondary.
So looking at the money that doesn't give you that benefit, and what expenses can be reduced. When's the last time you called your phone or your cable company and asked them to look over what specials they have that can reduce your rate? Do you have channels that you're getting that you haven't really watched anymore? Or, hey, you know what? I'm going to get HBO and you're going to get Showtime, and we'll get together at my house to watch the one and your house to watch the other, and we don't both have to spend that. I know it's only what, $10 a month, but that adds up. And that's a huge thing to remember, is all the little things that add up. We think about it when we're going to spend, let's say, $100, and we'll say, oh, do I really want to buy X for $100? But we don't think about those $5 and $10. And those are the ones that add up, that often are the ones that get us in the end. And those are the first ones I tell people you have to look at. What are the things you're spending without thinking about?
You must be talking about the Starbucks coffee, huh?
Yeah, it's Starbucks coffee. It's a quick, I'm on the run, I'm going to grab something from McDonald's or wherever. Yeah, it's those little things. I'm going to go to a movie. Do I really need the popcorn? No, but it's nice to sit there with popcorn. I can decide the movie and the friends are important, but maybe I don't need the popcorn and the drink, or I need a smaller size because I need a little something, but oh, it's a big bargain to get more. I'm never going to finish it, or I don't really need it. It's those little things and the way they add up that sometimes are the hugest opportunity to make a change for ourselves.
And that would be good for your diet too.
I thought we weren't going to use that word.
Well, you know what? I haven't gotten any suggestions in my chat box, so I don't know.
So most experts say you should have 6 months worth of expenses in your savings. So it's obviously, you're in the midst of a challenging time, or you probably wouldn't be on this call. So don't say, oh, I don't have X, so whatever. Try to add a little to it. Try to find $1 a week, $5 a week, whatever it is that you can put in your savings and build it. Don't worry that it's slow. Just putting away that little bit. Maybe it's every day or every week you take all the change in your pocket and you put it in a jug. It sounds silly, it adds up. And feel good about what you were able to do, and don't focus on what you're not able to do, because when you find your victories, it makes you feel better. And sometimes we spend to make ourselves feel good, and it's great for the 5 minutes when we get this new shiny, and then we put it down and go back to our regularly scheduled life. And we could have found that feeling by appreciating what we were able to put away in savings, or the debt that we were able to pay down.
So when you say 6 months worth of expenses, when we go back to our spreadsheet, I don't want you to do that, but we're looking at, okay, if we have a year, $30,000 of expenses, we want to have 15,000 saved for that 6 months.
That's what they say. I mean, you have
insurance and all that good stuff.
That's what they say. On the flip side, today I might have just paid my annual insurance. So, do I really need that for my next 6 months? But by trying to aim for that,
okay,
that's where you want to be, so that if there was a catastrophic, you lost your job, unemployment is having whatever issues, or your unemployment has run out and you haven't started your new job just yet, whatever it is, you want to have access to some money. They say 6 months. The problem with saying anything like that is then people say, well, I don't have that, I can't have that. And they move on, rather than trying to find that small victory of, but I do have 1,000, or I have 500, or I'm almost to 500, and appreciate the progress you make from where you are.
So let me ask you, Marci, would that 6 months include an IRA if you are unemployed and not working? Like, you can't put money in a 401k because you don't have a job. So is that a line expense item, or is that something that's kind of like on hold and maybe, secondary, as opposed to all the living and breathing stuff?
I would think that's on hold. I also would think, hosting Thanksgiving might be on hold. If you're currently in the tight, you can let someone else host it, or you can let someone else bring the turkey, or whatever it is. It's okay to ask for help. It's hard to ask for money, but it's okay to ask for help. Hey, I was going to do this big shindig. I'm kind of tapped right now. Can someone else pick it up? And maybe you just volunteer your house and a much cheaper contribution, a less expensive one. And you still participate, or you tell your friends, right now, we're not going out to movies at all, but I'd love to get together with you. And you find those things. So of all your expenses, which ones do you count or not count? You can say, yeah, well, so if I don't see my eye doctor for a couple of extra months, and I go 14 or 15 rather than 12 months, or, whatever it is, you just have to figure out which of those 12 months worth of expenses are what you include in that 6 months worth. It's a loose number. That's why most experts say you should have. It's not right. Every expert says you must have. Okay. It's always easier, I think, not usually, but always easier, more available to cut expenses than to increase income. That said, there's a lot of gig work. Some pays well, some pays poorly. It may or may not fit into your schedule. There may be other reasons that you can't pick it up. So unless you've already cut your expenses all the way down to the bone, there's probably things that you can cut. What are your necessities, and are you making the best choices with them? Your necessities are the things that you need to live, and the things that bring you joy. If my hamburger is of a lesser cut of meat and less burger, or a slightly higher fat, or whatever else, it's probably not going to affect me, but it will bring my grocery bill down. We're a family of 4, so those are the small areas that maybe I go to a no brand of bun temporarily while I get my finances back under control, or maybe I go out for coffee less. I drink my coffee just plain, so even my coffee drinks aren't that expensive. But
Marci,
everything adds up.
I heard just right there. I drink my coffee plain. Like, good for you, because that means you got, someone told me you should be a nun because they didn't have milk and they didn't have sugar. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't have my coffee without it for one. So I'm like up the creek without it. But we just came off COVID. I mean, some of us are still experiencing those symptoms of COVID, but everything was shut down, the entire world. So we didn't have movies and we didn't have dining and we didn't have a lot of the options that you have on a spreadsheet. So if we were to continue not going out and, you know, kind of putting all of that money aside in that savings or putting it towards credit card bills or whatever, then we might kind of play catch up in the meantime while we're still in job search. Is that what you are saying?
I don't know if I would say that. I mean,
Okay.
COVID was really stressful and
Absolutely.
we need to see each other and we need to socialize with each other. But maybe my necessity is getting together with my friends rather than going out. So I'll have them come over and I'll make burgers rather than going to a fancy burger restaurant. Or maybe we go to McDonald's as opposed to whatever the fancy restaurant for burgers is by you, or whatever it is. Figure out what's the necessity of that gathering. Is it seeing my friends or is it what we do? And that's part of it. You have to find your joy so you can get your joy that you need. I don't want people to stay in lockdown just because they saved money.
Perfect.
There was a lot of mental and whatever stress
Absolutely.
in there.
Yes.
And I wouldn't recommend that to someone. No one should have to be a nun. I just like my coffee plain.
Well, good for you. I tried. I can't do it. But yeah, I guess I'll never be that. I don't know.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong. Find your joy.
Absolutely.
Do you have debt you're currently paying off? And are you paying your debt off in the best order? So there are two ways to pay off debt. One is you pay the smallest bill first, the smallest balance first, and that way you get the emotional high of I had 4 debts and now I have 3. And there's nothing wrong with that. The other school of thought is you pay the highest interest off first, and that way you save a little bit of money. Now, depending on how big your debt is or what the various interest rates, that could be a little or a lot of money. But you know, that $100 over a year or 2 years or whatever may be worth it for you mentally and emotionally, just to know that you saved that $100 or $50 or $30 or whatever it is, based on, as I said, the loan rates and the overall amount you have. It's always important to have a plan, not just, okay, this month, this bill is due right now and I've got $5 extra, I'm going to put it here and do a random. Do something that will give you that mental and emotional win, whichever it is.
So with that said, Marci, is it better then to pay off any debts such as credit card bills or anything you owe as opposed to savings and having a cushion, or a little of each?
You want to do a little of each, because if you pay off your debt, you don't have savings and something happens,
Okay.
they're not going to let you take the money back out from your debt.
Okay.
They're not going to say, well, you paid us off on your car loan, but now we're going to give you that money back because you need it. If it's credit card debt, sure, you can pay off credit card debt because you can use the credit card later. Right. So some people do say that if I'm using it to pay off on an active credit card that I can still borrow from, I can kind of include the balance available on that credit card temporarily as the savings that I have, because if I need it, I can access it.
Okay.
But again, a lot of these are
from all this, so definitely, Marci, I'm reaching out to you. This is great information. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to share it. And are you appreciating your luxury item? So whatever it is that you think is giving you that great pleasure, are you really appreciating it? As I said, if you're getting together with friends and your luxury item is the fact that you're getting together with your friends, would you appreciate getting together with your friends as much at a cheaper venue or at someone's house as opposed to going out? What is that luxury item for you? Is it the meal, or is it the people, or is it both? It could justifiably be both, but you have to make these decisions because it's your money, it's your financial situation, it's your budget.
Shh. Still no words, guys. Come on. No words. Give me something in the chat box. What do you suggest besides budget?
Are you paying attention to your emotions about money? Is it giving you joy when you pay off your debt and you can see that debt is it giving, what is it that is giving you that joy, that appreciation? And can you manage it? Can you find it in you to actively start appreciating as you increase your savings or as you increase your investing, and find ways to manage it that feel positive for you? Because this is you, this is your stuff, this is your decisions. The job market that's out there, you may find a job that pays as much as what you had before. You may find a job that pays more than what you had before, or you may not. You may find that your next job is not going to pay as much as your last job did, and you do have to rein in some of these expenses more permanently, which isn't to say there won't be raises in the future or bonuses, or they will find the appreciation for the things you brought to the table that they weren't necessarily aware of initially. But you have to be aware that things are not necessarily going to be what they were before, and nobody's going to care about your money and your situation as much as you do.
Oh, that is perfect. So let me ask you, Marci, we have a question in the chat box, and I think it's awesome that it's addressed. How do you handle family members who feel they have a say, but they're not helping financially?
So my rule is, if I didn't lend someone money and I'm worried about them paying me back, it's none of my business what they did with their money. So if someone says you shouldn't buy that, or you should buy that, if they're telling me I should buy something I don't feel I can afford, I can tell them, you know what, that's just not where I want to spend my money. However, if you'd like to go out and buy it for me, you're welcome to. But if they're telling you you can't spend money on something that you want to, if they're not giving you the money to spend on it, expecting you to pay it back, then that's not their say either. If this is the thing that brings you joy, then it's your money to spend. It's unfortunately, it may be your debt to take on, but you have to decide. We have to be mentally and emotionally healthy. And if I need to go out to a fine dining experience once a month or every other month or whatever else, for me to feel good about myself, for me to feel that I'm working toward my goals, because I know that I am spending down my other debt, and I know that I am creating my savings, even if I'm not overflowing with cash. That's my reward for the progress that I've made. That's not anybody's business. If they're not giving you the money, then they don't have any say in it. But that's something you have to address with your family, because every relationship is different.
Thank you.
I wish I had a better answer. I don't have the winning lottery numbers for this week. I would share. You
don't have a crystal ball, huh?
Well, you know, it was working fine until the goldfish died, and then that was it.
Can you tell them that for me? Love that. Love that.
So things to take away is everyone, hold on. Everyone has expenses they can cut. Unless you've already gone through all of your money and all of your expenses and what you've done, chances are you have something in there that you can cut, reduce, remove, whatever it is. And everyone can improve their situation, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're at financially. There's something you can do to improve your situation. And it's not always pretty, it's not always comfortable, but it's almost always an option if you're willing to dig in to get there. And that may mean that you want to go and look at one of those budget lists and split out that Myers bill or whatever. What is it? BJ's out there maybe?
We have Costco, we have BJ's.
Okay, so when you go to those places and you're buying clothing and tools and grocery items, maybe you need to split them out and say, wow, my grocery bill is way higher than I thought it was, or way lower because of this one-time power washer that I bought that I needed for, whatever it was. And the more detail you have, the more likely you are to find those expenses that you can cut.
I love the fact that you have gone through the budget and again, outlined all those things, but taking those $5 wins and putting that together for the entire year once a week, as opposed to the bulk amount of 100, 200, 300. Like you feel $300 you save, but yet you don't feel that $5 that you're saving week after week. And all of those little wins could add up to a really big win. And we need to realize that. So that's definitely powerful for all of us.
Well, it makes a huge difference, and you have to appreciate every win, no matter how big or small, because that emotional is what can carry you to make the next cut, or what can power you to pull all that garbage out of your coffee.
I was just gonna say, I'm not gonna cut the milk and the coffee and the sugar though.
Okay, but the whipped cream and the 3 shots of espresso and
calories and extra expense. No, I'm not doing that.
And then whatever you do, don't use retirement money to bridge an expense gap unless it's an absolute last resort, because that's money you can't replace. If you pull it out of your retirement account, probably you're going to pay the penalty on it. But also, it's hard to get that money back in. And right now, the market, I believe, is still down. So you're losing that market growth that you would have had and the long-term growth. 5 years of money, earning more money is huge. It adds up. And if you can avoid going into retirement money, I've talked to too many people over time who, oh yeah, things were running short. I went into my retirement money for that. That money costs more than the interest you would have paid by keeping your credit card loan a little bit, or your credit card debt a little bit longer, and try and be aware of that. If you need it, I understand it's your money and that's your tool to use as you choose. But from a long-term strategy, my suggestion is to hold that till the very end, until it's an absolute necessary before you raid your retirement money. And then that's just me. This is educational purposes. It's not financial or professional advice. I haven't looked at any of your statements. I haven't done anything that I can give you advice of specifically what you need to do. So talk to someone professional, make your best decisions for your situation. This is how you can reach me. That's my website. I post tips there on a regular basis. I'll be posting this this video on there. So hi to future people watching it. And and that's what I've got. Let me stop the share.
Do we have any other questions for Marci while we have her? I mean, she's a captive audience, so definitely take advantage of our finance guru. And I still never got any suggestions for replacing the word budget with something else. So if you'd like to put in your 2 cents, I'll take that too. I don't like that word diet. So lifestyle change. So maybe budget is lifestyle change for your money. I don't know. What is your
thought? You could call it a financial lifestyle. Sorry.
Question, what is your thought about paying off credit cards with a loan?
Well, so you're talking about getting a loan from your bank or something,
Yes,
personal
no.
loan or a house equity loan or some such. If the interest rate is lower, then, I mean, financially it can be a good decision. However, if you're going to turn around and still be overspending because now you've got room on your credit card, it's something to consider. If you've got it on your credit card and that encourages you not to overspend, then that goes to that emotional. From a dollar control standpoint, obviously a lower interest loan is better.
So if you're getting a bank loan for 8% versus a credit card loan for 27%, then maybe the bank loan to pay off the credit card is better?
If it's a lower interest rate, then there's no reason not to, if it won't encourage you to otherwise overspend.
Okay, thank you. Finally, thank you, RJ. Instead of budget, how about spending control device?
I like that.
Love it.
But I guess that's up to people whether they'll use it to control their spending or not. I certainly a thought.
Yeah, yeah. If you have had a gift or inheritance, what percentage should be put away? Is there a
That
rule
would be
of thumb?
different for everybody, because the question is, how much is that gift or inheritance? Do you currently have debt? Can you, what are your other options? So you can't take a gift or inheritance and put it into retirement account. However, let's say you got $5,000 that you didn't need at the moment, and you already have an adequate amount in savings, but maybe you can use this to bump up your 401k contributions by $5,000. So what I've essentially done is, over time, use that to put away into retirement. I was putting away $5,000 in my 401k. I'm going to take that 5,000 inheritance and use that to cover the spending that I would have done to put other money into 401k. If I need the money to pay down a debt, if I don't currently have savings, then those are questions to address. So, you know, and certainly when you get a gift or inheritance, depending on if it's a gift for whatever purpose versus an inheritance, obviously someone passed, you may have different things that you want to do with it. So and so always wanted us to go on a family trip, so I'm going to use this to go on a family trip. You get that emotional part of it, and you can't negate the emotional part of finances. So you have to look at the overall picture and count that as a one-time excess income in this year, and look at the opportunities it has for you.
So one-time trip. Okay. That's all I got out of that. Okay, cool.
That's the only thing you heard was one-time trip. Nothing about the
One-time trip,
savings,
okay.
nothing about the retirement money.
Marci gave me permission.
You saw my disclaimer. I did not give you permission. I'm giving you opportunities to consider your situation.
I gotcha. I'm just kidding. I hope that answered the question. So in essence, it depends. It really depends on your situation and, you know, what you're coming to the table with and how much it is. And there's a lot of factors that are going to contribute to some kind of decision on that. Absolutely. Are there any other questions that we did not address? All right. Well, thank you so much. Oh, wait, one more. Marci, you have a student loan debt. Oh, don't we all? Which has been paused, but will start up again in September. Do I look into an income-based repayment plan that is 25 years?
I guess it depends on what your cash flow is right now.
Okay.
And what that income-based repayment plan, as opposed to any other type of plan. Again, this goes down to your personal financial situation. I don't know how long the debt is. I don't know your income and the what the repayment plan would look like, what it currently looks like, how old you are, how long you expect to work, because you don't want to be paying down your student loan when you might be retired. You don't want to stop saving for retirement because you're paying for a student loan. I mean, so you've got a lot of different things you have to consider there. I think for many of these things, you need to sit down. A lot of the student loan places are through banks and what have you, and they may give you opportunities to talk to people at their company to help you determine, or bank or organization, to determine what is the best opportunity for you.
So is it
You know,
percentage, or, what you're paying in addition? Is it your age, or how much you have before retirement, how many years in the workforce, or it's all of the above?
it's all of the above. I mean, right now, is your payment plan $200, and would an income-based be $50, which is significant? Is your cash flow right now positive or negative? What would it do to you to change it to that? What are you looking at? Because I think student loan debt follows us forever. I know it doesn't get discharged in bankruptcy. I don't know if if after we die, they basically come and like steal money from our pockets in our graves.
Actually, they do. I'm going to tell you, if you have a student and you co-signed their loan and they were hit by a car and they died, you are responsible for
That's
that
'cause you
student loan
co-signed.
for the rest of your life.
That's if you co-signed. And we also have to look at parent loans do not have
Yes.
any of the various opportunities that are available
Yep.
for the students if the
Yes.
parents sign a loan instead.
Yeah.
So
A lot of little intricacies that they
student loans are very particular, but you want to compare the numbers and compare the time frame and compare your financial situation and determine what is the best for you. It may be that, as I said, if it was 200 currently, but if you went on an income based, it would be 50. And does that mean there would be a balloon payment if you were to retire, because then you don't have the same kind of income? What are the rules on that particular loan? And every lender has different rules. So you need to talk to them and understand, if I do X, what does that mean given the other opportunities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that was only part of the answer, but yeah, it's the best answer she could give with so many variables.
Unfortunately, you've got to ask them what all those different plans mean. If I do this, what happens? And if I do that, what happens? And of course, what is your own financial situation?
Yes, absolutely. Are there any other questions? Okay. Again, thank you so much, Marci, for sharing with us all of those details of the lifestyle, financial change, budget. We can call it a lot of different things, and I appreciate giving us tips and hints on how we can save just a little bit to make a really big impact over the years. And you will get the URL sent to you as soon as it's ready, hopefully by the end of today. Never really know with Zoom, but thank you so much for attending. And you will have information in an email to reach out to Marci. So if you think of a question after we hang up, absolutely go for it and stay in communication. All right, very good. Lots of different thank yous that are in the chat box. So thank you very much, Marci.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to be here.
All right. We'll see everyone soon.